Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur. My name is Madhavananda Das. And today we're a little late with our program, so we're not going to have our bhajan this morning. We have a really special topic today I like very much. We're going to speak more about Suddha Bhakti, and in particular we're going to speak about sādhu-saṅga and vaiṣṇava-sevā as a process for developing ruci, taste. We spoke something about that in our last session or two. But today, our topic specifically, to continue, is the importance of hearing about devotees who have taste. Gora graganya gana gocha goloruharam goranga gura tamagopyara kolpa briksham Gopala Gada Ratidam Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshikavaram Satatam Namami Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramschavanarotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Vedi Ramayane Shaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adavante Chamadye Chahari Sarvatugiyate Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim Yat kripa tamaham vande shigurum dinataranam Paramananda madhavam Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3 today, Teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. Chapter 29, the discussion about pure devotional service, and this is our 9th session on texts 11 to 12, and I think we're going to have at least 2 more, maybe more. Madguna shruti matrena mayi sarva guhasaye manogatira vichina yata gangam basom buddho lakshanam bhakti yogasya nirgunasya hudaritam ahoitya vavadhita ya Bhakti Purushottame. Quote, the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. Reading from Srila Prabhupada's purport. The basic principle of this unadulterated pure devotional service is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrena means, quote, just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Prabhupada says, the flow of the Ganges water cannot be stopped by any condition. Similarly, a pure devotee's attraction for the transcendental name, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Godhead cannot be stopped by any material condition. The word avichina, without interruptions, is very important in this connection. No material condition can stop the flow of the devotional service of a pure devotee. So, in our last sessions, we've been speaking about the importance of faith and different types of faith and how that leads to ruci and how we have to be nishtha to guru, how even surrender is not enough. Jiva Goswami says in Bhakti Sandarbha, he says you can get all perfection by saranagati or surrender, but if you want to taste Krishna Bhakti Ras, then you should specifically constantly serve the Siksha Guru who teaches the Shastras and the Diksha Guru, the giver of the mantras of the Lord. And he says, only by their mercy can one please the Lord and be free from anarthas. And we read something also from Srila Prabhupada, how he was saying that we shouldn't take this as blind faith. Even he says, you should ask, what have I spoken about this? And why has he said this? Prabhupada says, apply your arguments, apply your logic. Prabhupada, in one letter to Kurandar, he says that this Krishna conscious movement is meant for independent thinkers. That's a very, very important thing. So speaking about this ruci, we commented from Vaiṣṇava-Sevā Thakur, he says, Sacha Shavana Kirtanadi Mai Bhakti Satsangam Vina Na Sudasi Bhavatiti Satsangam Pratayate. That even that bhakti which is consisting of Shravanam and Kirtanam, hearing and chanting, it's not sweet. Vina na sudasi, not sweet, unless you have satsanga, proper association. And so in our last session, which was on Wednesday, we spoke about, our last session, which was on Sunday. Wednesday, we spoke about Janmashtami. We spoke from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 25, the very last verses, and the importance of ruci. And I'd like to just review one verse from there, where Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says, in text 279, Ayam rita koropan jada sama nahi an chitte kori suddha visvas. First thing he says, Ayam rita koropan. All of you, puts his hands up in the air. Listen to what we're about to say. It's really important. Ayam rita koropan. All of you, jada sama nahi an. Come here and drink this nectar. Jaya Samanahiyan, there's nothing compared to this. Chitta Kori Suddha Visvas, have firm faith in this process. Napada Kutarka Garti, really important. What is all these, conspiracy theories and things? Well, why don't fall down in the pit of false arguments. There's a major karkasavarti, there's an untouchable, harsh whirlpool there. And if you fall down in that, you're going to spin around and your head's going to become completely confused, and you're going to forget that the purpose of everything, the purpose of life, the purpose of everything is to hear and chant about Krishna, and to hell with so many other things. There's always problems in the world. And if we don't do that, he says, a little strongly, Jate parilohoy sarvanas, then the purpose of our life will be spoiled. So we have to drink this. Pibata Bhagavatam Rasamalayam. We have to drink this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. Param Drisva Nivartate. If we do that, if we get that higher taste, then we become fixed in consciousness. And so, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami is saying, Napada Kutarka Garti. Don't fall down in that pit of false arguments. Tarko Pratishta, that this argument, it's not conclusive. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, debate arises only from a desire for conquest. It is extremely abominable. Fault-finding arises only from imposing one's own bad habits on others. He says, quarrelsome people become intoxicated by useless arguments. While discussing topics of the Lord and his devotees, the practicing devotee should always be careful to avoid useless arguments. And so this is a little review of our previous sessions, briefly. And today I'd like to start our 9th session. We want to speak something, first of all, about two different types of ruci, two different types of taste. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Madhurya Kadambini speaks about this. The first is vastu vaisistya pekshani. It's dependent on externals. I really like the kirtan. But when that guy leads kirtan, oh my God, I have to just get up and walk out. I've seen that sometimes. I remember one Mataji, we were sitting in a program and she came over and she said, "Boo, I'm really sorry, but I have to leave. I can't." There was one particular devotee who was singing in a little bit of a harsh voice. And I just can't listen to this. And they got up and left. So sometimes we have some taste if it's nice music, if they're playing the kartals properly and the mridanga, and if they're not, oh my God, I just can't deal with it. But that's still a kind of ruci. Vastu vaisistya pekshani. Pekshani means it's dependent on us, waiting. For vastu, vasisti, it's some good quality. It's dependent on external things. The second type of ruci is vastu, vasistya, anapekshani. It's not dependent upon those external things. And a wonderful example is Srila Prabhupada, and how the devotees once came to him with a newspaper article. They were very disturbed. They said, Prabhupada, this person came and interviewed the devotees, and we thought it was going to be a nice article that he wrote, but he wrote so many nonsense, critical things. And Prabhupada looked at the article and said, but see, they mentioned Hare Krishna, the words Hare Krishna 3 or 4 times in the article. Very, very good. And Prabhupada was very happy by that. Of course, it doesn't mean that we should encourage people to write stupid things about our movement and then say, well, they said the name or the mantra a few times. But the point is that Srila Prabhupada had so much taste for the holy name that he became happy even in a negative article by seeing it. So what to speak? They're not playing the instrument properly. They're not playing any instruments. They're not even doing anything consciously. They're doing it negatively. But Prabhupada has this ruci, this very special kind of ruci, which is not dependent upon anything else. So this ruci is described in the first canto of the Bhagavatam in a very important verse, which we often quote. Shushu Shoshadadanasya Vasudeva Kata Ruci Shan Mahat Sevaya Viprapunya Tirtana Sevanat. That this ruci comes from rendering service to the Vaishnavas, who are punya tirtha, who are just like walking tirthas. By doing service to those persons, then we get kata ruci. So this service to the Vaishnavas is a very, very important thing. The 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, text 12, is a very nice verse which describes Shruto nipatito jata adrito vanumodita sadhya punati sadharmo deva vishvadruho pihi. That this bhakti is so potent that just by hearing about it, shruto, anupatita, repeating it, meditating on it, jata, adrita, faithfully accepting it, or even anumodita, praising when it's done by other people. If that's done, then sadhya punati sat dharma. That sat dharma, sadhya immediately, punati, it purifies. Even if the person who is doing it is deva vishvasadruha, someone who hates the demigods and hates everybody in the whole universe. Maybe you met some people like that. I hate this, I hate that, I hate all of it. I hate people who are not strict. I hate women. I hate grahastas. I hate this, I hate that. Even people who are so hateful, if they just meditate upon bhakti, upon someone who's doing bhakti. Rupa Goswami elaborates more upon this in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He says, Esham swapara sambandha niyamanirnayau hiya sadaranyam tarevoktam bhavanam purvasuribi. That the sages, previous sages, Suribi, they've discussed, these Purva Suribi, ancient sages, they discussed about the bhavas or the ecstasies of devotees who are both present and past. It's very important. It's a very important anga of bhakti, aspect of bhakti, to meditate on the devotees, the previous devotees, and the present devotees. Because for someone who's practicing bhakti, nothing can be stopped. But if we don't hear about examples of that, we just hear from this verse, oh yes, that the nature of bhakti is it can never be stopped. Okay, that's all right, but oh my God, I broke my leg. I can't practice bhakti now. I've got a cold, or I'm terrified of the COVID virus, so I can't practice bhakti now. But we should think about the devotees. one story we heard that some devotees were doing Sankirtan in the deep south in America. And this was like in the late 60s, early 70s, at a time when there was a lot of what we call rednecks, which means very angry, hateful kind of people. And they arrested the devotees for doing Sankirtan. And they put them in jail. And it was very depressing for the devotees because it was Sunday. And for the devotees, especially in those days, Sunday was like a big day. It was the day of the Sunday feast program. When all week long, maybe they would eat simple prasadam, but that day, woohoo, they'd have so much nice prasadam. And so they're sitting in jail, and they're depressed. But then somebody said, we should have kirtan. Let's have a Sunday feast program. Let's cook and take prasadam. And somebody else said, well, look, we're in jail. There's no instruments here. There's no deities here. There's no kitchen here. There's no ingredients for a kitchen here. And they said, come on, didn't you read Nectar of Devotion? And Prabhupada spoke about the Brahmin who was cooking sweet rice in his mind and burned his finger on it. And so then all the devotees started doing kirtan together. And the guards are coming and watching. One devotee started doing artik. He's standing like this. And then afterwards they said, okay, we're going to cook. Who's going to cook what? I'll cook rice. Someone else says, well, I'll cook puris, I'll cook halava, I'll make sweet rice, I'll make paneer sabji, I'll make pakoras. And they all started sitting down and meditating on cooking. And then after they meditated on that, they said, okay, everybody sit down, and we're going to offer it. And they all bowed down and they offered the prasadam they cooked in their minds. And then they went around, they put imitation plates in front of everybody, and they served prasadam, and the guards are watching them. These guys are, and then finally one of the devotees came over to the bars there, the gate, and he told the guard, would you like some prasadam? Here. And he offered him some prasadam. So there's no bar for the devotees. Because they have some ruci. I don't have such a ruci, but I'll tell you a little story from my own life. I was once arrested for doing Sankirtan in San Francisco, and they put us in jail. And I'm such a fanatic, I'm not going to give way to anything. So the next morning when we got up in jail, you can't even take a bath. It's all really nasty. So a little person, we have copens on. They'd taken away the bottom part of my copens because they were afraid I'd strangle myself or something, kill yourself in the jail. But I still had the top string of it. So I took that copen off and I tied knots in it. And I'm sitting in the jail cell chanting japa like this because I'm not going to give up anything. And these are some examples. But when we think about the devotees in Russia and how they put them in these terrible camps, practically to kill them, and what the devotees were doing, and how they didn't stop preaching, they didn't stop chanting. It's such an inspiring thing. And we should read about these cases. We should hear about them. It's a very, very important thing. Rupa Goswami further explains this. Shaktir asti vibhava de kapi sadanani krito pramata tadabedena swamyaya pratipadyate. So he speaks about our own identification. Now it's natural, everybody identifies with the body. We think this is me and this is mine. He says, but in the matter of identification, there's an indescribable kind of power. When we're like in a drama, and this is a verse from Bharat Muni's description about rasa, which Rupa Goswami is quoting. There's a wonderful character quality when we see a drama and we meditate upon the actors on the stage. And what happens then, you see one actor and you think, yeah, I like that person. And it's almost like we're in their body then. And whatever happens to them, we're experiencing the same kind of thing. A similar thing is there in drama and also in theater and movies. This principle is there in bhakti. It's a very powerful principle when we meditate upon another Vaishnava. Rupa Goswami explains this further in a verse which is also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tad tad bhavati madhurje shrute dir adyad apekshate. The same word, apekshate, depends upon, which is used by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, which we cited above, when he speaks about two different types of ruci, apekshani and anapekshani, which is dependent on externals and not dependent on externals. So Rupa Goswami uses the same verse, same word, apekshate. He says, tat tad bhavati madhurje shruti dir yad apekshate. That when we hear about the bhavadi madhurje, the sweetness of the loving moods, in a particular rasa, shanta dasya sakya vatsalya madhurja, in a particular rasa, when we hear about that, then we become inclined in that way. When we give our intelligence, he uses the word dir, di means intelligence. When Shruti, we hear about that, and we apply our intelligence to that. Nata shashrana yuktam cha ta labo pati lakshanam. Then we begin to covet, we become attracted to that. We start having this desire, this lobha, this greed, he says, that I want to have what that devotee has. And then our intelligence is no longer dependent upon the instructions of Shastra, Nata Shastra, na yuktam cha. So this comes about by hearing about great Vaishnavas. And Rupa Goswami then goes on in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, a few verses later, with a very important verse. Seva sadhika rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lupsana karya braja lokana sarata. That we should follow a particular devotee in Braj. We should find someone that we really are attracted to. And this comes about as we progress in bhakti. We'll naturally become attracted to a particular type of Vaishnava. And then we should start meditating on that person. And in this way, we perform our bhakti both internally and externally. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a similar description. Nija bhishta Krishna preshta pachite lagiya nirantara seva kori antarmana hana. That the residents of Vrindavan, they're Krishna preshta. They're very, very dear to Krishna. Pachita lagiya. If we follow them, nirantara seva koro antar mana hana. We should follow them 24 hours a day. We should be thinking about these devotees of Krishna, these very dear eternal associates of Krishna, and meditating upon them constantly within our mind. Again, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami says, Krishnam smaran janam chasya prestam nija samihitam tat tat kata ratas chaso kuryad vasam braje sada. The devotee should always think of Krishna within himself. Krishna smaram janam jasya. And we should think prestam nija samihitam. We should meditate upon a particular devotee of Krishna in Vrindavan. And we should constantly tat tat kata ratas chaso engage in speaking about that devotee and their loving relationship with Krishna. And he says that if we can't personally go to Vrindavan, Vasam Braja, and live in Vasa, then we should do it in our mind. We should mentally reside there. So it's such an important thing for us to meditate upon the devotees of the Lord. And it's partly for this reason that Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they observe the appearance and disappearance days of great acharyas. And so yesterday we had one such important day, very important day for the followers of devotees in ISKCON, and that's the appearance day of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And all the devotees all over the world, with great relishment, we were meditating on Srila Prabhupada. I'd like to speak a little something about something confidential, which generally is not spoken, but it's in writing, it's there, and that's one of our Gayatri mantras. We have 7 Gayatri mantras, and one of them is the Guru Gayatri. And I won't speak the beads and give it away, but I'll speak the rest of the mantra. Guru Devaya Vidmahe Krishnanandaya Dhimahi Tanno Guru Prachodayat. Srila Prabhupada translated this Gayatri mantra. Let me try. The word try, Satsvarup Maharaj comments on this. The word try he feels is important. Let me try to understand my spiritual master, who is always in blissful Krishna consciousness. Let me meditate on him, being enthused, just as he enthuses us. Satsvarup Maharaj commented on this in one of his books. He said, someone asked me how to retain remembrance. And I replied, by any and all means. And then he quoted this verse to them. Oh, Krishna. Oh, terrible. It's 8:45. Anapayani, you should chastise him. Yeah. Anapayani. Listen, come here. I want you to do something. Sorry, dear devotees who are watching online. This happens. Sometimes we've got somebody wanting to bring us our milk. So I want you to phone him back and tell him that he should give it to the guard. Okay? Oh, just keep trying. So Satsvarupa Maharaj was asking, how can I attain the platform of remembrance? And he replied that by any and all means, and then he quoted this verse, Guru Devaya Vidmahe Krishnamandaya Dhimahi Tanna Guru Prachodayat. And he commented on this. He says, a phase is past, an era in ISKCON. He says, the verses stating that one should cry on the disappearance of the spiritual master have already been read several times. What a powerful statement. And I was reading this and I was thinking about Bhakti Chandra Maharaj and my own Guru Maharaj. And Satsvarupa Maharaj is saying here that we passed the time. And many devotees have quoted about how we should cry in the disappearance of the Guru. We've already done that. He says, now what? What now? And he replies, my only answer, my only hope is to seek out serious devotees and discuss Srila Prabhupada, or at least discuss why we're not discussing him. This is my only hope, he said, to speak about Srila Prabhupada. You could send him a message. Okay, thank you very much. To speak about Prabhupada, or at least speak about why we're not speaking about Prabhupada. And again, to quote Satsvarupa Maharaj, who spoke very nicely about this Guru Gayatri Mantra, so this is sort of a Vyas Puja offering he made in 2014. And he says, I always repeat the translation of Prabhupada's unique English of this verse, because it's packed with esoteric meanings. It begins, let me try to understand my spiritual master. The use of the word try implies we will not be able to fully understand him. For me, it hints at his siddha deha, or his eternal identity in the spiritual world, then who is always in blissful Krishna consciousness. And Satsvarupa Maharaj goes on to saying how from behind Prabhupada's grave demeanor, is very, very grave person, he was always experiencing ecstatic emotions. And he's speaking about this Gayatri now, Satsvarupa Maharaj. He says, let me meditate on him being enthused as he enthuses us. Prabhupada was certainly enthusiastic. He rose at 1 o'clock in the morning to write his books. He chanted his japa in private, and then went on a vigorous walk with his disciples, discussing philosophy and often drawing them into debate. He returned to the temple, greeted the deities, took part in kirtan, and gave a Srimad Bhagavatam lecture. Later in the morning, he answered his worldwide correspondence with his secretary, met with temple leaders and guests, took massage, bathed, and enthusiastically honored lunch prasadam. After a brief nap, he was up for more meetings, darshans, and always preaching as a, quote, jet-age parivajakacharya, end of quote. He traveled constantly. Once he said he traveled, quote, just to keep my disciples alive, end of quote. Despite advancing old age and fragile health, he kept moving. Some calculated that he circled the globe 14 times, and everywhere he went, he kept the same schedule, starting with rising in the middle of the night to write his books, his, quote, emotional ecstasies, and lecturing daily. Prabhupada was enthused. And Prabhupada gave everyone else enthusiasm. And this is our tradition in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, that we glorify the Vaishnavas on the occasion, especially their appearance and disappearance. And it's not just sometimes a materialistic person may hope, oh, when I die, I hope that Some people will get together and they'll say, Madhavananda was such a nice person, and I remember he said this and he did that, and then wherever I'm at, I'll feel good. Yes, they remember me. That's not the purpose, although that's the attitude of a materialistic person. But our purpose in meditating on these devotees is to try to understand their mood, and thereby understanding their mood, be infused with enthusiasm to also proceed in a particular way. If we don't meditate upon them, if we don't think of those devotees, as Rupa Goswami says, Krishnam smaram janam chasya prestam nija samlitam, we should think of a particular devotee and always meditate on that devotee. It's a very, very important aspect in the development of our bhakti. And so we do this. We meditate on devotees both current and in the past, as Rupa Goswami says. We meditate on current devotees like Jayananda Prabhu, like Brahmananda Prabhu, like Jamuna Mataji. Great devotees of Srila Prabhupada and what they did. And even we like to hear Sankirtan devotees, their stories, which are very, very contemporary. They're still alive, but we like to hear what they did, and it gives us so much inspiration. It's a very, very, very important thing. And in our Gaudiya Vaishnava history, our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, there are so many books. The Srimad Bhagavatam itself is just full of the stories of devotees. And we're meant to hear about Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj and the Brijbasis and so many different devotees and how they love Krishna. And we want to meditate upon their mood. Such an important thing. We want to read books like Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat, Bhaktamala, Bhakti Ratnakara, Prema Vilas, Narottam Vilas. There's so many books written by devotees about devotees. And in contemporary world, we also have other books about Jamuna Mataji. We have books, stories of Srila Prabhupada from Brahmananda Prabhu and Govinda Dasi, and so many different devotees. And now we also have books, as we said, about Jamuna Mataji, her life. We've written some book about our own Guru Maharaj. And there's books about Tamal Krishna Maharaj now. There's books about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And by reading those books and hearing about them, it gives us so much inspiration. And it also helps us to become free from envy. And that envy, the quality of envy is we think I'm the most important person. And the nature of that envy then is I want to engage in debate and argue with other persons. And then we can't really relish bhakti and properly advance. So I'd like to finish with a story or two, at least one. This is from Nabadas's Bhaktamala. And on one occasion, Narad Muni, he became a little proud. It happens sometimes. And he thought that he was the greatest devotee. And Lord Narayan, he's seeing his pride. He said, hey, Narada, I'd like to take you with me to meet some of my devotees in Swetadweep in Vaikuntha. We should go there and see what they're doing. And so they arrived there, and they saw a bird sitting on the edge of a lake. And the bird was just sitting there, and not moving. And Narad Muni thought, what's wrong with this bird? Stupid bird. Birds are supposed to be moving all the time, and they're always eating. And sometimes there's an expression we have in English that someone eats like a bird. It means they eat just a tiny little bit. But a bird eats almost constantly throughout the day, little. But this bird was just sitting there. And Narad Muni, he asked the Lord, he said, why is this bird just sitting like this? And the Lord said, you don't know. This bird is very, very special. This bird is in samadhi. It's been sitting there for 1,000 years and been meditating upon me in great ecstasy and bhakti. And so although it's sitting right next to the water, it won't drink any water because this bird is not eating anything, he's not drinking anything, he's just sitting there for 1,000 years, completely absorbed, meditating on me. Because he won't drink anything other than prasadam. He said, watch, let me show you something. The birds were not drinking. And then Lord Narayan took a little bit of water in his hand and dropped some drops down on the bird. And the bird immediately drank it up. He said, this devotee, this bird, he has ruci. And Narad Muni said, oh, I didn't understand. I couldn't appreciate. And the Lord said, that's okay. Let's go see some other devotees who are here. And so they went further, and they came there in the spiritual world to a temple This is in Svetadweep. This particular story is in Bhaktamala. And there was kirtan going on. And the devotees the pastimes of the Lord were being glorified. And there was artik being offered to the temple. And after some time, the artik was finished and everything. And then one devotee came running up. Oh, oh. And then he saw the artik was over and the temple was closed. And he became so disturbed, seeing that, he fell down on the ground unconscious. And then his wife came running after him. Is the artik going on still? Oh, oh, the temple's closed. Oh. And she fell down unconscious. And then the children, they were also running there. Where's the kirtan? Where's the artik? And they saw that everything was finished. And they all fell down. They all wanted to die. They wanted to leave their body. In the spiritual world, it's no problem. But they wanted to leave their bodies because they weren't able to see that artik. It reminds me also of the story of Krishna when he's performing a Ras Leela at Vamsivat. He was blowing on his flute, and some of the gopis couldn't go there. They were being held back by their husbands. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that there's nothing that can hold the devotees back. We've been hearing about this is what the Bhagavatam's speaking about here. And when those gopis who were being held back by their husbands, you may say nothing can hold them back, but they were being held back. Those gopis left their bodies. They died. And in their spiritual body, then they went to Krishna. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, so just see, nothing can hold us back. And we want to hear about such devotees like the gopis, like Narad Muni, like this little bird in the spiritual world, like this family who's so eager to hear and chant about Krishna. We want to hear about the devotees in Russia and what they went through and the terrible difficulties, but they never, ever gave up their bhakti. And by hearing about such devotees, it's so very, very important. Therefore, Rupa Goswami says, it's so important. We must hear about the previous devotees and also the present devotees. I mean, we may have some envy. Oh, I'll listen about the previous devotees, but there's no bona fide devotees present today. I'm not going to hear anything about them. But if you say like that, then how are we going to have any inspiration? Then we're going to think that everything is just theoretical. Everything's in the past. We speak about great devotees like Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, but now they've left this world and we're just stuck with a bunch of jerks and idiots and people who just want to have some big position. They're all a bunch of demons anyway, and the only person who was really bona fide was my guru, was Srila Prabhupada. And what a depressing, horrible world. And if you go on like that, then I'm sorry, everything's over. There's no more Hare Krishna movement. Because it's so very, very, very important that we have living saints, that we have someone we can think about and be inspired by. And not devotees in the spiritual world, but also past devotees and also present devotees. We should meditate upon them and think about them. Think about their ruci. Think about this Gayatri mantra for our Gurudev. The purport of it is we're meditating on Gurudev and how he's in ecstasy and how happy he is. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in one purport, he says this is a function of the disciple, is to be anubhava, following the mood of Gurudev. And constantly meditating on the mood of Guru. And we can't, as Satsvarup Maharaj says, try to understand. I can't understand it completely, but I'm trying and trying to understand it. And by trying and trying to understand it, I may attract the mercy of that personality. I want to meditate on their ecstasy and meditate on how they're inspiring me. And how Srila Prabhupada wasn't sleeping. He was doing so, and the devotees were crying in ecstasy. I want to meditate on Srila Prabhupada and what he did, but I also want to meditate upon when Prabhupada would arrive in the airport. Suddenly all the devotees would start crying. All of them would fall down on the ground. They were so ecstatic. They had so much taste, so much ruci in the things the devotees were doing. They were going out on Harinam for 10 or 12 hours a day, every day. They were going out for book distribution. I heard some devotees in Scotland, they would go out in the morning at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day, and they wouldn't come, or New Year's Day, and they wouldn't come back until 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning the next day. Devotees were working so hard. I want to think about that. I want to meditate on their ecstasy. I need that. Otherwise, everything is theoretical. If there's no living saint, everything is theoretical. So this is one of the points of this verse. I want to stop there. Thank all the devotees who are listening in today. And ask now if anybody has any reflections, any comments. I'd like to find out what you're walking away with today. Anybody have anything online? Anapayani, do you have anything? Anapayani Radha has some comments.
Thank you so much for speaking about this important thing that we should meditate on the devotees and their devotional service, and not just some devotees in the spiritual world, but also devotees who present here also, or who was just recently present here, and it's really important. Also, I really appreciate this quote from Satsvarup Maharaj about "let me try to understand my spiritual master." Like this, try. It's really important because we can see an example of our acharyas and devotees that they never think they understand spiritual master. They're always in the humble position and they're always begging for the mercy. And this is really important. Thank you so much. And also that you said that Srila Prabhupada, he was traveling a lot just to keep alive his disciples. It's really important. I just wanted to add, because it's really connected, what my Guru Maharaj told yesterday. He basically was speaking how Srila Prabhupada, he gave empowerment to his disciples, to his sincere disciples, and he gave a few nice examples. Like he said that once he was speaking with Radhanath Maharaj, and Radhanath Maharaj was sharing with him, that I just paraphrasing, but I try to at least convey the meaning. So he said that I just really amazed how if Prabhupada's how to explain this, just I will try. Sorry, I couldn't do all these things which I'm doing right now without Prabhupada. It's really obvious. It's really obvious. I just wondered how my capacity to do something is really small without Prabhupada's mercy, and we can see in his life, like he's doing so many services and so many really amazing things in distribution Krishna consciousness, and he's really clear that he himself can't do anything like this, and he understands only Prabhupada. And also he gave the example of Ananta Shanti Prabhu, who was the first devotee in Russia, and Shyamasundar Prabhu, he shared that I never saw that Prabhupada put so much in one person in 5 days when he was speaking with Ananta Shanti Prabhu in Moscow. Like he put all his energy in one person and it empowered him just to begin this movement in Russia. It's really amazing. Thank you so much. And I have one question. You said about 2 types of
Ruci.
yes, and I was thinking how to come from one for the first one when it's depend on different things, and how to go to another one.
So the first type of taste we get is when we're hearing for our pleasure. But when we start hearing as a service, we go to the Bhagavatam class, even though, oh my God, sometimes the people who are speaking, I'm not so inspired by them, or even they're trying to do some politics or something. But I'm going there as a service to please Srila Prabhupada. I'm hearing as a service. And that will develop some ruci, will develop some taste. When you're speaking about these points about the importance of meditating on the devotees, I was thinking about Parthasarathi Maharaj, such a wonderful Vaishnava. And if you go to visit him in his Bhajan Kutir, Govardhan, on his walls, he has paintings and photos of so many, many devotees, including Jamuna, including my Guru Maharaj, and so many, many different devotees. And he also has a collection. He has a little piece of cloth from our Guru Maharaj, and he has something from Prabhupada, and he has something from so many, and he worships all of them every day. And every day he meditates on the 6 Goswamis and so many different acharyas, and he offers prayers to all of them. It's such a very, very important principle. And it makes me a little heartfelt, because if we don't do this, then what will happen is we'll become envious. We'll start becoming critical, and it's such a terrible, terrible thing. And therefore we see devotees who don't have faith in any current Vaishnavas. As Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, if we don't have faith in some Vaishnava, then we're simply going to engage in envious, violent, and blasphemous activities. And that'll be our choice. Lynn has commented, what a wonderful, inspiring teaching. I love to hear about the lives of those who helped to birth the movement. I feel like such a fortunate baby devotee, placing my baby feet in the footprints of those who came before me and offer such grace. Hare Krishna. That's our life. And it's an important principle also of gratitude. We appreciate our Gurudev, our Guru Janas, and the Vaishnavas, and we can be grateful to them. It's very important for our bhakti. Krishna Kundi, what are you walking away with today? Can you tell us?
I was marking this point that if you don't have living saints, then the tradition dies, then there is no more Hare Krishna movement. And this is exactly what Sri Niranjan Maharaj was talking about yesterday, how Prabhupada was a heart man. And then Anapani Radha made this beautiful comment that just like one candle is lit from another candle to another candle, this knowledge is going from one heart to the next heart to the next heart. And we understand that this is good. This is not only Anapani Radha, but we understand that this is Shri Guru Parampara, that the knowledge goes from heart to heart, from the heart of this spiritual master to the heart of the disciple. And otherwise, if this is not happening, then spiritual knowledge is not living anymore, and it cannot ignite others. Because unless there is fire in your heart, you cannot ignite somebody else. And this is why Srila Prabhupada's disciples are the way they are, and this is most wonderful. So I just wanted to comment on that for a minute. And I wanted to read a quote from Srila Prabhupada, which I believe is exactly to this point. It's interestingly enough also to Satsvarupa Goswami in 1967, very early. Srila Prabhupada said this to him, wrote this to him. Please accept my blessings regarding your question about the inhabitants of Vrajabhumi or Vrindavan. It is to be understood that Vrindavan is the original abode of Lord Krishna, as he is the original personality of Godhead. In that transcendental plane, he has his transcendental associates in different exchange of humor. For ourselves, when we are in perfect stage of devotional service, we can know our eternal relation with Krishna. And as such, one of the associates of Lord Krishna becomes our ideal leader. This acceptance of leadership by one of the eternal associates of the Lord is not artificial. Do not therefore try it at present. It will be automatically revealed to you in proper time.
What a perfect comment. Thank you so much, Krishna Kund. I always like asking Krishna Kund to speak at the end because she makes the best comments. And devotees commenting here, even if you don't have fire within yourself, right? If you don't have fire within yourself, you can't ignite others. Excellent comment. It was very nice. We had such a wonderful program yesterday. It's such an inspiring thing to come together with devotees. We were socially distancing. We had our masks on, but we got to come together with the devotees and hear about Srila Prabhupada and some of Prabhupada's followers, and that was very, very inspiring for us. So thank you all very much for taking part today. We're going to come back again on Sunday, and we have more discussion about this verse today. Hare Krishna. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.